A strong tropical wave moving into the Caribbean right now is already being highlighted by the National Hurricane Center for potential tropical development this week. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, great to see you on this Monday. Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. Hope you've been having a great day. I hope you had a great weekend. Coming up in this video, the Bahamas have been hammered today with intense storms. A lot of heavy rainfall. We'll look at that. Other areas of intense storms and rain as well. And of course, all eyes on this tropical wave about ready to enter the Caribbean. We'll talk about the rain it's going to bring to portions of the Lesser Antilles and then its potential tropical development as it moves across the Caribbean as we go through the remainder of the week. As we get started, thanks to all of our new subscribers here at Meteo Mundo. I appreciate you. I love to hear from everyone. Drop it in the comment section below where you're viewing from and what the weather has been like. And we're going to get started right now. As I mentioned, the Bahamas absolutely raked with intense storms today, and they started early on this Monday. This is the loop over the last 6 hours, but it's been going gangbusters since the early morning hours for the central and the southeast Bahamas. Just pretty much everywhere. Cat Island, Long Island, Crooked Island, Exuma, Rum Island, all the way back down towards the Turks of the Caicos. And again, these storms producing intense amount of lightning, some very heavy rainfall and gusty winds, and they haven't been moving very much as well. The first axis of the heaviest storms just moving away, but additional storms are redeveloping right now, and they're beginning to also move up into the northwest Bahamas, which overall has been quieter. But that being said, I expect there to be more activity. So look, it's been a really rough day here so far. If you live in this area, let me know in the comments section below what you're seeing. Let's get into the northwest Bahamas. And again, quieter so far for Walker's Key, Grand Bahama, and the Abaco area. Already some storms getting going in Andros, close to New Providence and Eleuthera. All of that moisture is trying to move up to the north. I mentioned this area in yesterday's video, and some of you yesterday from the Bahamas were like, you know, we've been really dry, Rusty. We could use some of this rain. And the whole time I was thinking, just wait till today, because this is a very interesting feature. We have a very broad cyclonic spin. Now, it's not going to be anything tropical, but there's a ton of moisture and a mid-level trough that's really lifting that up, and that's why we're getting all of the storms for today. Very active forecast for the Bahamas the remainder of this Monday into early on Tuesday. Will feed that moisture north and east in an elongated fashion, and these storms will eventually work their way towards Bermuda with higher rain chances in that area for at least a couple of days to come, beginning late tomorrow and into Wednesday. But again, it's going to get more active for places like Freeport and Nassau through the remainder of the late afternoon hours. And you can see for the central and the southeast Bahamas, you've already had 1 or 2 rounds of heavier storms, but we're not done yet. These storms are redeveloping at the hour over the Exuma area, and they are as far as southeast as portions of the Turks of the Caicos. Storms are flaring up at the hour over portions of Cuba. It's been a little bit quieter today so far, but they're just getting going. And that's what I've noticed on this Monday afternoon. It's taken a little bit longer today as we got the heat of the day going, but now we're starting to see these storms flare up. Same thing for my friends in Jamaica. It's been a relatively quiet day so far until right at the end here in the late afternoon hours of this Monday. One storm developing over the Montego Bay area there in the Hanover Parish area, but there will be more. This will move to the east-southeast, so places in St. James and Trelawney parishes, the northern side of St. Elizabeth and Manchester could get in on this. Maybe as far southeast as Mandeville and Maypen with this particular storm, but there'll be more coming. Now, not everyone's going to get it, but it's not like I expect just this one storm to flare up. You guys are still under this rich tropical moisture plume, and that's going to give you a good opportunity for storms over the next several days as well. A little bit quieter in the Cayman Islands so far for today, but again, the same situation where we're starting to spin up a little bit more of that moisture on the eastern side of our Central American gyre, which is going to have some big impacts to that potential tropical development as well, but again, lifting the moisture that's already into play. Now we're getting some good storms over the Dominican Republic at the hour. It's lighting up like a Christmas tree there across basically the entire island, especially on the eastern half of the Dominican Republic. Look at all of the storms. First of all, again, it's just taken an hour or two, and these storms rake Santo Domingo and La Romana towards Punta Cana, and they're really getting going right now in the northern northern side of the island towards the Samana area, with places like Santiago de los Caballeros potentially the next to be hit. Your live lightning counter, this is just over the last 15 minutes in this view. We've had over 130 lightning strikes in just 15 minutes in this area. So very intense storms with a lot of lightning. You want to be indoors with some very heavy rainfall. Storms are also beginning to lift closer to the southern coastline of Haiti towards Barahona, and then potentially towards places like Lacaille and Port-au-Prince as well. We follow this across the Mona Passage into Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. And again, storms are flaring up at the hour. They're becoming more intense. We have this beginning moisture axis here with our tropical wave beginning to influence and produce storms, and it's going to be widespread this afternoon, and then almost like a faucet, we shut it off pretty quickly beginning tomorrow. So this is the last best chance for rain for places like San Juan and Fajardo and Arecibo and our friends in St. Croix and St. Thomas and St. John, Vieques, Culebra, for all of these areas until about late Thursday or Friday. So we're going to get some of the heavier rain. You can see the lightning developing there at the hour, and all of this pushes off towards the west, and it will be replaced by some Saharan dust coming in, and there's going to be some haze to talk about as well. Storms are kind of in the scattered nature across the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands right now, but places like Road Town on over towards St. Thomas and St. John have had a few showers and storms for today. Slip on over to the northern side of the Leeward Islands, our friends in Anguilla, St. Martin, St. Bartholomew. We had one kind of moisture plume come through with some spotty downpours and a few strokes of lightning. Again, fairly area dependent, but places like St. Eustatius, Saba, St. Bartholomew at least saw some of those showers pass over the islands. It's been a little bit drier farther off towards the east and south, Barbuda and Antigua, Montserrat. St. Kitts and Nevis kind of right on the edge of that. Quieter towards Guadeloupe and Dominica at the hour. Same thing for Martinique. Then we get into where we're starting to see a few showers trying to develop. That's going to be for St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, Grenada, Trinidad, and Tobago. And again, this is on the leading edge of our tropical wave, okay? And we're going to get a lot more into the weeds about what this wave is going to do for the week ahead. But in the short term, this is going to bring a good chance for showers from St. Lucia south. So St. Vincent, Grenadines, Barbados, Grenada, Trinidad, Tobago, places like Guyana, Suriname, and Venezuela will be in on that act. If we follow this line, if there is one area that could just desperately need some of this tropical moisture, it's the ABC Islands. And they're going to get a better chance as the axis of this tropical wave is forecast to move right over the island chain beginning late tomorrow and into Wednesday. But at this point in time on this Monday, the ABC Islands are still dry. Now we have, again, our Central American gyre, which continues to elevate the showers and storms over the Yucatan and Central America. I'm going to take off this 5-day formation zone just because it's easier to see. Now, again, we have a little bit drier air that's nudged in because we've actually had northeast winds in the Northwest Caribbean. That's going to get shut off and we're going to return to southerlies beginning in the next 24 to 48 hours. But it has, at least, if nothing else, made the storms a bit more localized over the last couple of days. That being said, it has still been storming again through Cancun, Cozumel. Basically all of Quintana Roo has been fairly wet today. Some of that in the morning, some of that redeveloping in the afternoon. I noted some very heavy rain across coastal Belize earlier this morning. San Pedro down towards Belize City, Dangriga. Now the inland areas, Belmopan and San Ignacio and Orange Walk, all at least getting that opportunity. Again, it's not going to be area-wide, but storms are redeveloping. Same thing for portions of Guatemala and Honduras and El Salvador and Nicaragua as well. Again, a little bit more spotty today, but still the opportunity is going to be there. One more look at the broad perspective here, and then we're going to get into the forecast. And the first thing I want to talk about in the forecast is this Saharan dust. Look, guys, this is going to certainly start to shut off the rain chances in the Lesser Antilles, especially the Leeward Islands, and then through Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Hispaniola, Cuba, the Turks and the Caicos, maybe as far west as Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, and portions of the Bahamas and Florida. I mean, this is going to have an influence here to bring in, first of all, very hazy conditions, but to begin to really limit the opportunity for some storms in this area. This is a significant plume of Saharan dust. This is the loop over the next 5 days. I want you to note as this dust gets into the Northwest Caribbean, notice this spin right there. It's beginning to get influenced by that Central American gyre there and that twist in the atmosphere. And the bulk of the Saharan dust is going to be moving north and west and really not very far west. This should not really reach the far western sides of the Caribbean, and that's important when we're talking about the opportunity for some tropical development. So we're going to get into the models for you right now. First thing we're going to look at is the rain chances in your area over the next 5 days. Then we're going to get into the tropical outlook with that tropical potential disturbance. And I've got all different models to talk about, a few different locations I want to get into. As we get started, if you haven't liked the video yet, as I get this model up and looping, thank you for liking the video. I appreciate that. It really helps out the channel. If you're not a subscriber yet to Media Mundo, and then you've been looking for your latest forecasts across the Caribbean and the Bahamas, you found your home. I appreciate you subscribing right now. Also, thanks to all of those who have found the super thanks and have donated that way. Some of you have also found my PayPal and my Venmo in the descriptions and contributed to the channel in that way as well. And I can't thank you so much for your support in all those various ways. So let's look at the GFS model over the next 5 days here. And again, we'll get into the weeds with this potential tropical disturbance coming up. But let's talk about more localized areas. We'll start off in the Bahamas again, because these storms will continue to get going across the central and the southeast Bahamas and even portions of the northwest Bahamas through tomorrow morning. But we will begin to dry out as this moisture axis moves up to the north and to the east. So decent rain through tomorrow night, a few more scattered showers on Wednesday. Then we get a little bit drier for Lucaya and Freeport and Nassau, all the way back down to the Turks and Caicos, as this system works its way north and east, actually kind of combines with something coming off of the United States East Coast. It's all weak in nature, but it's going to throw, first of all, some rougher sea conditions here towards Bermuda, and then a better chance for showers and storms for the island as well, beginning late tomorrow, but especially on Wednesday and Thursday. So watch out for that in that area. Now we're going to continue to see showers and storms crop up on the eastern side of the Central American gyre. The GFS model is still too dry for places like Cuba, Jamaica, and the Cayman Islands. And I'll show you the NAM coming up in just a minute for those areas. We really do shut off the rain relatively significantly for Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. Again, the storms today and the GFS model just doesn't pick up on it enough right now, and I'll show you the NAM coming up. But I do agree with this, that we're not going to get much more until at least Thursday or Friday here. The Saharan dust is significant enough of a player, including the Leeward Islands, where our rain chances go down to about a 20% chance at best. And obviously it's going to be pretty darn hazy outside. It's going to be humid. The heat is going to be a factor here. You should expect in these areas heat advisories or some excessive heat warnings, especially for Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Now, as we get south, as I mentioned, of St. Lucia south, we are going to be more influenced by this tropical wave at least through tomorrow night. And we'll start to see that rain move in, and it's already come in a few waves, but later tonight through Tuesday, good chance for some showers and a few storms in this area. But the Saharan dust is also going to be a factor in this area behind it, kind of the back end of that moisture axis, and we'll dry out in this area again until the weekend, where we might see another tropical wave in a much weaker fashion work its way through. But again, it is just going to be drier in this area beyond tomorrow night, as we see that Saharan dust, especially north of St. Lucia, really end up becoming a factor. I'm going to switch over to the NAM model here. I showed you guys this yesterday because I just kind of believe that the NAM has a better handle on how this moisture is played out with both the Saharan dust and the tropical wave. Now, I do want you to note that it's slightly wetter in the areas I just mentioned through tomorrow, but it also dries out these areas. So you can see that surge of moisture on the leading edge of the tropical wave axis, bringing some showers today. So again, and as I've mentioned, it's wetter as it should be for Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. Just has a better handle on what's going on. And we're going to continue to see this Central American gyre and this tropical wave combine to throw showers and storms over Jamaica and the Cayman Islands each and every day. We're not going to get dry days out of this. We might dry out a bit later in the week, but that's going to be a big battle in this area between that potential tropical disturbance and then the Saharan dust in play. Now, after, as I mentioned, a little bit couple of drier days in Central America. The Central American gyre is still a big factor, guys, and once we pick up the broader cyclonic spin again, meaning our winds in this area are more out of the south and southeast, we wrap back that moisture in from the western sides of the Caribbean, and now we start to see these rain chances elevate. And as we get towards the end of this period, obviously, then we start to see what might be happening with our disturbance and how that could influence the Western Caribbean and the Yucatan as we move into the weekend. But before we get into that, we're going to look at your rain chance island by island over the next 3 days. For the Northwest Bahamas, again, I expect more storms to just keep firing up on this late Monday afternoon through the evening hours. It's an 80% chance. As that feature moves off to your north and east, your rain chances tail off. Same thing for our friends in the central and southeast Bahamas and the Turks of the Caicos. Lower rain chances by midweek. Cuba stays at a relatively active pattern, 50 to 60% chance of storms each day. Cayman Islands will also still be fairly active as well. Belize City, at least a 70% chance for showers and storms. Cancun and Cozumel, at least an 80% chance for daily showers and storms in your area. Jamaica, again, Monday, Tuesday, 60% up to 70% on Wednesday, and probably staying at that level. I really don't think that the Saharan dust is a huge factor in Jamaica's forecast. The Dominican Republic, it is a different story. We'll start to see that dust come in and the rain chances lower tomorrow, and then it gets a lot drier for Puerto Rico as well. The U.S. and the British Virgin Islands, all those rain chances dropping to 20% or lower starting tomorrow. Bermuda's chances go the completely opposite direction, up to a 50% chance on Wednesday. Anguilla's chances again drop down, same thing for Saba after scattered showers and storms for today. Antigua, Barbuda in the same scenario. Dominica is about the same place there, 40% chance today, much drier Tuesday, Wednesday. St. Lucia gets a bump tomorrow as that axis of moisture moves in. Barbados, I apologize, I should have you at 60% for tomorrow as well. Decent chance for rain late tonight and early Tuesday. St. Lucia, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, and some of that moisture lingers a little bit deeper into Wednesday for T&T. For Guyana, healthy 60% chance for storms once we see that moisture axis move away. It's a 40% chance, and then the ABC Islands, about a 30% chance for rain coming up with the wave. It's moving fast, but it should give us an opportunity for some of those showers and storms. Okay, guys, we're going to now get into the forecast here for all of the tropics. And as we're doing so, I'm going to load up here, first of all, the GFS model, and we're going to take a look at this all the way to the 1st of July. And I'm going to let this load up, and we're going to look at a couple of different things. We're going to look at the reflectivity, we're going to look at the surface winds, and then we're going to look at the spin in the atmosphere. One thing I want to note, and I've already shown you the Saharan dust, and I just want to talk about forecasting tropics in general. I've been a television meteorologist in the United States for 25 years. I was born and raised in Florida. That's where I live now. Tropical weather is my forte. It's very rare when you're talking about tropical weather forecasting for it to be binary, meaning it's a yes or it's a no answer. It's somewhere in between most of the times. That's the blessing and the curse of doing tropical forecasting, meaning that when the Saharan dust is present, you're probably never going to hear me say, that's it. The Caribbean is closed. We're not going to get any tropical development in the next 7 days, next 2 weeks, next month, because we have the Saharan dust in play, especially when it's a dynamic year for potential tropical activity, when you have La Nina, when we have our Central American gyre, when we have extremely hot ocean temperatures. Again, it's never yes or no for the most part. And this is one of those factors. We have a huge plume of Saharan dust moving in, but we also have the opportunity to have tropical development at the same time. Now, will the Saharan dust influence this potential wave? Absolutely. It's going to do two things. First of all, it's going to try and keep it a little bit farther off towards the south, okay, rather than nudging into the deepest of that moisture, of that tropical plume, that Saharan dust plume that's up towards the Greater Antilles. And it also may not allow it to develop until it gets closer to the Central American gyre into the western sides of the Caribbean. But again, talking binary yes or no, very rare to do that with any, conviction, if you will, as we go through the remainder of this season. So let's talk about, we pick this up as we get into our Friday. And you can see the GFS beginning to spin this up in the northwest sides of the Caribbean. Now, again, if we follow the GFS, and I'm going to show you the European model, this would be moving over the Yucatan and then into the southwest sides of the Gulf of Mexico. If I put back on that 5-day formation zone, the hurricane center has absolutely gone where that beginning formation area of the GFS is, riding again over the Yucatan, and then into the Southwest Gulf. Now, earlier in the week, we had it a little bit farther north and east. There is a trough in the Gulf of Mexico that will come into play. The timing, if it passes by fast enough, we might actually get southwest winds as this moves on. That would do two things. One, it might allow a little bit less wind shear, so this could develop before it gets to the Yucatan. And two, it might move a little bit farther to the north and to the east. That being said, those are all things in the weeds right now that will come into much more clarity as we go deeper into the week. But you can see that very clearly there on the GFS model. Now, if I switch over to the wind profile, and these are going to be your surface winds, and we'll let this loop up over the next week as well. I'm going to drop off the 5-day formation zone, and we'll watch this. As I've mentioned, it's going to bring fresh breeze and hopefully some rain to places like the ABC Islands. But as it gets closer to the Central American Gyre, which again is a stationary, broad area of cyclonic spin and a lot of lift in the atmosphere, it is going to be a factor. On the eastern side of that, watch that, try and ramp up and then move into portions of the Southwest Gulf. Now look, when we're talking about what this could end up becoming as far as intensity, again, still too far out. Nothing is signaling something to be extremely strong, but we still have 5 or 6 days to monitor it. Hurricane Center still has us just at about 20% chance, but again, this is traversing over about 1,700 miles between where they're talking about it is now and where it could develop, all right? It's about a 1,700 mile journey over the next 5 days. You can see that wind profile field going right over Cancun and then moving into the Southwest Gulf. Let's take a look at the vorticity. Actually, while I'm on this product, it might just take a second to load up. So if you guys will humor me here for a second, I'm going to put on the wind vectors and I'm going to loop this up. I have to change the vector field. And the reason why I want to do this is, and I hope it cooperates, because sometimes this product, especially when I haven't preloaded it before a show, doesn't cooperate very nicely. But I wanted to show you, we can look at the wind direction with this as well, and you'll see it. And these are surface winds that we do get a closed center of circulation here on the GFS model. So again, it's going to take a second or two to just kind of completely loop up here, but we'll start to see that wind field work its way in. And there's the opportunity, especially as we get into the Southwest Gulf of Mexico here, to see a little bit of spin. If I take this grid area down just a little bit here, it's going to be a little bit easier to see. So you can see here as we move in, fairly fresh easterly breeze, and then there's just that little twist right there. Now, the interesting thing is, obviously, if it's trying to develop over the island, over the Yucatan, that might be a problem, right? You know, as far as actual development, but we can clearly see that kind of twist there as well. And there's a little interesting feature up on the northern side of the Gulf of Mexico. So that's what we'll be watching for. Here it comes here on the 29th and 30th, and you see those white arrows are winds of over 30 miles an hour. So that's what it looks like as far as those wind fields go. I'm going to switch over to, let me go back over to the gusts here. Give me just one second. Like I said, I went out of order because I just saw that and I was like, I got to take a look at that real quick. I'm going to go back over to our vorticity product, and now we're going to look at spin. So let me go find that real quick. Okay, so this is spin in the atmosphere, and I've shown you guys this, I think, each and every day the last several days, because I love this. It's almost like fluid dynamics in the atmosphere, okay? And we can clearly see that spin and it picking up. And what really happens here on both the GFS model and the European is it gets wrapped into the broader spin of the Central American Gyre. Obviously, the drier air is going to try and push this more off towards the west anyway, but we can see that really pick up right there as we get into the weekend. The 29th is Saturday, the 30th is Sunday, the 1st is going to be Monday. So as we get into Friday the 27th, and then there on Saturday and Sunday, that's what we're looking at there. And again, this is a composite of the spin in the atmosphere in the lower levels. It's not at the surface, but again, it's a good indication of the areas that I need to be monitoring. And if I zoom this out, guys, and we go all the way back out to the beginning, you can clearly see that wave holding together and then getting stronger in the Western Caribbean, right in the formation zone from the hurricane center. All of that was the GFS model. Let's break down the European model. It's the same product that you just saw, but on the European model, your vorticity composite at the lower levels of the atmosphere, 850 millibars. Take a look at it here. You can see that broad spin again as we get over the weekend. pushing it into the Yucatan and into the Southwest Gulf, okay? So we have two models, or two main global models, which are very much in agreement with potential development in the Western Caribbean over the Yucatan into the Southwest Gulf of Mexico. Again, we're not talking about how intense this is going to end up being or anything like that right now, just that that's the area that I'll be monitoring for the week ahead. I do have to point out another area though as well. If you look on this side of your screen at the end towards July 3rd and 4th, we are going to get another signal here coming into the northern side of the Lesser Antilles, all right? I've looked at this in a couple of different ways. I'm going to let this loop one more time. So we have another potential vorticity or spin in the atmosphere moving into the northern side of the Lesser Antilles as we get into the 3rd and 4th of July. If we take a look at the European model, this is the deterministic model, by the way. This is not the ensemble where there's 50 different members and you can look at one or two out of the 50 and say, oh, there you go, that's what I'm looking at. This is the deterministic model from the European, its output. It does have a closed center of circulation in the northern side of the Leeward Islands. This would be late on the 3rd of July. Now we're 10 days out. It's simply for informational purposes, and that's all we're gonna get into. But this could be the next area that I'll be watching for. And we can see the model wind speeds here on the European model as well. Again, we do have a closed low. It's fairly quiet on the southwest side with more fresh winds right now up to around 30 knots on the northern side. But again, for informational purposes. And the reason why I show you this, if I go back out to the GFS model and I extend this out to July the 4th, actually that's fine. It's gonna be the 5th, and I loop this up, and I loop this up. It'll take a second to pop on, but we go into these areas here, and you're gonna see it on the GFS model as well. That's another tropical wave I mentioned in the Windward Islands, but here it comes. That's it right there. The GFS model and the European model have picked up on the same feature for the same time frame for the same area. So I'm confident enough 10 days out to at least say, hey, look, for informational purposes only, this could be the next area that we want to monitor. And by the way, this has been multiple model runs on both models that have shown this feature. So again, for the northern side of the Leeward Islands, the Lesser Antilles in general, we'll be watching this one for you here in early July. And I'll have you updated tomorrow as well. Again, it's relatively weak, but both global models pick up on that spin and drive it up towards those islands. It's also going to be wet, guys. We've talked about the amount of rain across the area. We're still in inches, 3, 4, 5 more inches of rain or higher for Central America. All of the Yucatan. You can see more now of the Lesser Antilles, the Windward Islands especially, getting in on the act. And then you can see that moisture axis from the Bahamas all the way up towards Bermuda. Again, 4 inches of rain, 100 millimeters, and that is pretty widespread. We're going to have more healthy rainfall totals across the area for the week, and then obviously monitoring as this tropical wave progresses across the Caribbean. You know, I've got you covered, friends. I appreciate you liking and subscribing to the channel. If you want to find Media Mundo across our social media platforms, here's how you can follow us. Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook. You can send me a picture or video or any business inquiries at mymediamundo@gmail.com. Again, thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. I've got you covered. I'll have the newest information for you tomorrow, and I'll see you then right here at Media Mundo.